All right, tonight we have Ryan Alcala from 5-Star Chemicals. Can you give a brief introduction of yourself, what you do, and what you have to say about new things coming out?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Ryan. I'm with 5-Star Chemicals. I'm the business development manager with 5-Star. I've been with 5-Star about 3 years. Prior to that, my path into beer is that I was a brewer for Breckenridge Brewery for a little while before going or after getting into sales. And then I decided to move over to 5-Star. 5-Star has been around for so long. I mean, we've been around for over 50 plus years, but in the last couple of years, we've really started to develop not only some new products, but the direction that we're kind of taking with readdressing some of our stuff with making PBW better. We're reformulating things. We're, making more products for the home brew market. Yeah, the direction that I think 5-Star is taking is, we're just trying to be more involved with the people who use our stuff the most. And homebrew has been, in our background for the longest time forever. So we really wanted to give back by starting new programs like the homebrew program, which we're going to have some interesting presentations over the next couple of months. So just happy to be here. And, I want to talk about like a recommended two-step method. I want to talk about passivation a little bit too. For those people who have stainless steel equipment, it's kind of one of those important aspects of, maintaining the life of your stainless steel. I'm going to talk about like a few sanitizers that I would recommend. And then, like I said, some new products that we kind of have coming out. I know some of you might have won some of those categories and got some of those free products, but I still owe the group some Pbw tablets. So I'm going to make sure to send those to you guys in the next couple of weeks. So, but yeah, I could share my screen if do I have to get permission to share?
I made you a co-host. You should be able
Okay.
to share your screen. Unless it does not work for you, then let me know.
Okay. Can everybody see that?
No.
Okay.
Let's see. You should have permission.
Okay. Let me see here. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Still
no?
no. Yeah. You see the big green button, right? Share screen.
Yeah.
It's not working.
Hang on here. Okay.
There you go.
There you go. Okay. All right. So, all right. So first off, we're going to start off with just recommended two-step process, and I'm going to talk about PBW a little bit. I'm sure you guys are familiar with using PBW, but I want to kind of go over some of, the reasons to use PBW and some of the safety aspects and, maybe some questions that you might have had about, once you mix it into solution, how long is that going to last you? Or for instance, what's the shelf life of PBW? We do get these questions quite a bit, but like I said, we're going to open it up at the end for Q&A. So if you have anything specific you want to ask, please let me know. PBW is non-caustic. It's an alkaline-based cleaner. It works great in CIP systems. It works great for part soaking. And one of the best parts about PBW is it's safe to use on a wide variety of, whether it's stainless steel, copper, plastic, all ranges of plastic as well. It's safe to use on all of that. So if anybody's ever asked though, or you've always wondered how long will PBW be effective for once mixed into solution, we do recommend 8 to 12 hours once mixed into solution. Now, when you're mixing it into solution, obviously, like the hotter the water, the better. you know, that there might not be a ton of people using it for a CIP application, but we do recommend that because the hotter the water is going to not only help dissolve PBW into solution, it'll help dislodge some of that caked on soil that could be on one of your tanks. So yeah, and it works on a wide variety of things. It works on kegs, carboys, tanks, heat exchangers, like you name it. PBW is effective at cleaning it. And like I said, the safety element of it is really the biggest thing. You know, it's safe to handle. If properly stored, it will last up to 2 years as well. And it does have an excellent hard water tolerance. So even in softer water, too, PBW is still effective. Now, some of the newer things that we're doing with PBW is we kind of briefly, me and Stephen were kind of talking about, we are launching a liquid PBW in the next 2 weeks. So liquid PBW is going to be available in homebrew sizes in the next couple of weeks. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to send the group a few gallons if you guys are still doing brew days or anything like that for people to sample. So what we've really tried to do with liquid PBW is we didn't want people to have to use twice the dosing rate of the powder to get equivalent in cleanings. So that's taken us a little bit to dial in. But with this latest reformulation, we think that we have it. So with liquid PBW, you're going to use it in 1 to 2 ounces, the same as the powdered PBW. But we did cut down on the foaming aspect of it, and you can use it at a wider temperature range. The other thing that we do have out is the Pbw tablets. So we specifically created those for homebrew. Now those are going to be available in 2 different sizes. So I think I sent the group the 10 gram. So the 10 gram is going to be 1 tablet per 1 gallon of water. So that's going to be great for like cleaning carboys, things like that. We do have it available in a smaller gram tablet. It's going to be a 2.5 gram size tablet. Now that's more intended for part soaking. And if you're just not going to, you know, make a big batch of PBW. So those are some of the newer things that we're coming out with. But like I said, like you guys reaching out and doing this presentation, we want you guys to try the product and give us your feedback. So that's the most valuable thing like we can do, you know, when we establish relationships with clubs like this. So that's just a little bit about PBW. I'm going to move on to the second step in the 2-step process, sanitizers. So Starzan. So we always say, don't fear the foam with Starzan. And there's kind of a reasoning behind that. So the high foaming aspect of Starzan really does allow, especially when, you know, you're sanitizing parts, that foam allows it to get into all those cracks and crevices and really truly sanitize, like for instance, like parts. Now there are a couple of things with Starzan. Now, once you mix Starzan into solution, Starzan will actually stay good for up to 6 months. So the biggest thing with Starzan is that anybody using Starzan, I do recommend that you use pH test strips. So what you really want to do is you want to keep that solution at 3 or below. Now, the reasoning behind that is technically to be considered a sanitizer, it does need to be at a pH of 3 or below. The easiest way to do that is with pH test strips. We do also sell like a 5-star test kit too that I might be able to get you guys. And that's a titration kit. So it's a little bit more accurate it measures the parts per million of your solution in your water. And now we are also tableticizing Starzan tablets too, but that's probably not going to be available for another year. But what we're hoping to accomplish with that is the same as the Pbw tablets. You just pop that in some water and you have an instant sanitizer. So yeah, Starzan's a great product. Contact time with Starzan only needs to be about 1 to 2 minutes. So really quick and easy product to use. Now you're also going to see SaniClean down at the bottom of that screen. So SaniClean is going to be our low foaming final rinse sanitizer. A lot of people in craft use it just for the low foaming aspect of it. I mean, great for CIP applications, but also great for manual applications as well. Now, we do sell quite a few other sanitizers. For instance, like we do sell Iostar, which is going to be an iodine-based sanitizer. And then we do sell Starzan as well. So just moving on here. This is a little slide just about the Pbw tablets. Like I was talking about, we are going to have those available in the 10-gram size, perfect for carboys and cleaning, kettles. And then we are going to have the 2.5-gram size available as well for part soaking, essentially. Now the 2.5-gram size, it's going to be 1 tablet per 32 ounces of water. And then the 10-gram is going to be 1 tablet to 1 gallon of water. And then it's actually not on this slide. Maybe you guys can see here. It's not the best slide in the world, but this kind of talks about our 3-step method. So I talked about the 2-step, especially when you're home brewing, you want to obviously clean and sanitize. But the second step in the 3-step process, what we recommend to craft for anybody with stainless steel equipment, or you recently purchased, new stainless steel, we do recommend that you passivate. So what passivation is in a nutshell, essentially, is you're helping preserve the life of your stainless steel. So by passivating, we do recommend passivating up to 2 times a year. And we do recommend our Acid 5, which is a phos nitric blend. And what that's actually going to do is help build up an oxide layer and remove some of the iron from especially brand new tanks to help with corrosion. So for instance, if you're using in a craft environment, if you're using a caustic over time, if you're not passivating, can essentially pit your stainless steel. So we are talking about having that available as well, like in smaller sizes. But the only problem with that, getting it out to like our retailers that specifically homebrew shops, it will be available online as well, is that it does have to ship hazmat since it is an acid. But we are still talking about doing that in smaller sizes. So that'll hopefully be available in like 32-ounce bottles, 16-ounce, 8-ounce, and then 6-ounce as well. So that's just a little bit about passivation. You'll see Acid 5 on there, and then you'll also see Acid 6. Now, Acid 6 is another product that we have, for instance, for keg washing. It is a very similar blend as the Acid 5. It's a phos nitric blend, but that's more intended for keg washing because it's designed to work in CO2 environments. You'll also see Acid 3AB on there in the middle. Acid 3AB is a specific acid that we use for rust removal. So anybody who purchases, for instance, like a used tank, we do have chemicals and acids that can, get all that gnarly crud kind of off the tank. So that's just a little bit about the 3-step process that we do recommend, for instance, for a craft environment. Now I do kind of want to show this. So throughout the pandemic, we did see such a big rise in the homebrew, like people returning to homebrew, right? Or, clubs just being a lot more active than, for instance, they used to be. So what we really wanted to do is we wanted to create a program that people could sign up for free. And then we will be giving presentations and then also working with some of our partners in the industry to give presentations each month. So for instance, it's like I said, it's free to sign up. I think all you need is your email for anybody who's interested in the club. And then we have presenting this month, we have American beverage equipment. And then we also have for December, we have more beer. And then we just signed on John Palmer. I know, big name drop, right? But John Palmer's going to give a presentation in January. But what we're really trying to do is just keep a more interactive element to it. Last month, we had Blickman Engineering. So the guys over at Blickman are really good partners with us. They spent an hour answering questions for anybody interested in purchasing like a Blickman setup, or it was just a really good presentation that they did. So we're going to keep going with this each month, but the other aspect of the club is going to be if you sign up as a club, we're also going to provide you discounts on all of our products if you wanted to purchase online. So we will send a discount each month. And then it's actually kind of cool too. Like for instance, like if anybody's a big fan of the tablets, I think past $20, you get free shipping as well. So you apply the discount, you get free shipping, and then you have direct access to some of the newer stuff that we're going to be launching. So that's just some of the things with the Homebrew Club. I encourage you guys either to sign up as a club or just as individuals, because we're going to have a lot of cool stuff. We're also going to have a big booth at HomebrewCon. A lot of the events this year got canceled, obviously, like due to the pandemic and everything else that's been going on. But we did sign up for HomebrewCon. You're going to see us if anybody's going to be in attendance at any of the homebrew events. And yeah, we'd love to do things like donate to your events or anything that you guys are doing by being signing up for this club. So that's just some of the stuff that we kind of got going on. And then I figured we can kind of open it up to Q&A for anybody that had any questions about any of our products or.
Sure. In the chat box right now, there's a few questions.
Okay.
So I figured we can start with those. I can read them off to you.
Okay. So I have it pulled up right now. So I'll start off with Dustin. So does acid 3AB also passivate after the rust is clean? So it does. So it being that similar phos nitric blend, you can use it to passivate. It is a little bit higher of a concentration though. So I would just make sure the dilution rate is 1 ounce per 5 gallon is what I would recommend. Acid 5 is what I would definitely say to do over the 3AB, because the 3AB is initially intended for rust removal. So,
okay, that's good to know. I was wondering, so if I was restoring like a brew vessel, it'd be nice to not have to run the acid 5 run also.
Well, you can also do it an acid wash too. You could go up to 4 ounces per 5 gallon and do an acid wash with the acid 5 and see if that takes care of the problem as well. The only thing with acid 3AB is we only have it available in a 4x1 size, and it have to be purchased direct through us. So not everybody has it. So acid 5 is just more readily available too. So and then Tim, is Starzan acidic enough to passivate? This is a great question. So we do get this quite a bit. Now you can use Starzan to passivate. With Starzan, if you are going to passivate your stainless steel equipment, I would recommend a 1 ounce per 1 gallon to passivate. So you just want to use it as at a higher concentration, but you can, because it is a very similar blend in the acids.
Real quick on that, would you still do that twice a year then?
Well, it really depends on how much you're brewing. You could do it once a year, but it really depends on how much you're using your equipment. Normally, we do recommend 2 times a year just to be safe, but you can even get away with 1 if you're not brewing on a consistent basis.
How long would you leave that in the solution for?
When you're passivating?
Yeah, so if you're going to fill up your kettle or your conical, whatever you're using, and you fill it up with the solution, what would you say the amount of time you want it sitting in there for to passivate it?
I would do 30 minutes to an hour. 30 minutes, you could get away with 30 minutes. I just wouldn't leave it too long. 30 minutes is a good time to leave it in for.
Okay.
And then same shelf life question for SaniClean. So shelf life for SaniClean is gonna be about so do you mean like
I meant when it's mixed with water. If I store it in a keg, yeah.
Okay, so it is, and it is important for you to use like kind of that same technique. If you're checking the pH on it, the pH should be 3 or below. So that solution will last longer. Now, what you can also do to extend the life of that solution too, is you could always take a capful of, like, for instance, Starzan or SaniClean and add it to your solution. And then if you have pH test strips, you could just test it like that to see if it's still at that 3 or below. That's what I would recommend.
That's really cool.
Yep. I mean, this is me telling you guys this. You'll see on our website, we do say like after a 12-hour period, but I know how it is. Like it doesn't make sense for you to get rid of a product that's still good to use, So next question, what are some common myths you hear spoken about Starzan or Pbw that you could dispel? That's a good question. In particular with Pbw, that it's like, for instance, not safe to use on copper. It is safe to use on copper. It is safe to use on aluminum. So Pbw does not contain sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide, for instance, if you have that in a cleaner and use that, like for instance, on a canning line where it has aluminum in it, it could damage a canning line. Pbw does not contain that as an active ingredient. And it is safe to use on copper, especially like on, for instance, like a heat exchanger. In the distilling industry, they use it for copper stills, to clean copper stills. Starzan, one myth about Starzan is it may foam up too much. Now I definitely wouldn't use Starzan in a CIP application, but when you're manually sanitizing, the foam is your friend in that instance. Or for instance, if you're sanitizing parts, like I was talking about before, like that foam is going to get into those cracks and crevices, and it's really going to sanitize better than some other products on the market. Another myth about Starzan is that, once mixed into solution, kind of what we're talking about, that it'll just last a while. I definitely would recommend, keeping it at a pH of 3 or below, because you're not really sanitizing after that point. And never rinse after you sanitize. So you can't sanitize something that's not clean too. So that's why we always recommend that 2-step method. So those are some myths. But you guys feel free to tell me anything that you've heard, and maybe I could dispel it. So do you have to heat up Pbw to be effective? Now, to that question, I would definitely say the sweet spot with the temperature of water should be anywhere from between 120 to 180. Now, the reasoning behind that is kind of like what I was talking about before. I mean, first off, that'll help dissolve the powder into solution, and it'll help make sure that it's fully dissolved. The other aspect of things too is once you're cleaning that, Pbw works better at hotter temperatures, because like I said, it will help dislodge that. Sorry, was somebody asking a question?
No, background noise.
No worries. But yes, like it will help dislodge some of that caked on soil. If you can't get the temperature of your water hot enough, I am going to send you guys the liquid Pbw, and that will be available soon. The liquid Pbw is going to work at a wider temperature range, because you don't have to worry about some of those dissolvability issues. But even with that, I would still recommend the hotter the water, the better. But I understand how it is. Sometimes you just can't get your water hot enough. And especially with the tablets too, anybody who's used them in the group so far, they should know that they dissolve really quickly. It's almost like an Alka-Seltzer tablet too, and we specifically designed it to work like that. So temperature of the water, still keep it hot, but it should fully dissolve even in a little bit colder temperature. What is the shelf life mixed Iostar? Also curious about the shelf life of mixed Starzan. So I think we kind of covered Starzan. I would say with Starzan, I mean, it can last you, I'd say anywhere between 4 to 6 months, so long as you're testing the pH. If it goes above that pH level, like I said, you can use a capful to kind of sweeten the solution and then test the pH again. Now with Iostar is not going to have, since it's an iodine-based sanitizer, it's not going to have that longer shelf life. So after you mix Iostar into solution, I would only recommend keeping that solution around for a couple of days. So, but again, you should be testing the pH to make sure that it's within that threshold with Iostar.
Does Iostar clean on pH also, or is it some other aspect of it that does the sanitation?
So the thing with Iostar is, since it's an iodine-based sanitizer, there's a couple of things. A lot of people have moved away from iodine-based sanitizers because iodine-based sanitizers are a little bit more expensive, and the contact time is usually a little bit higher than some of the other sanitizers out on the market. For instance, like with SaniClean, you would only need between 10 to 15 minutes. With Iostar, we do recommend 30. So I would recommend the pH, just because that's what the pH of 3 or below is what qualifies it as a sanitizer. So technically that's what's sanitizing, is keeping your solution at that level.
Okay, because so I guess adding to the myths part is I had read that Iostar cleaned in a different way than SaniClean. And so sometimes it would be beneficial to clean with both SaniClean and Iostar.
So for instance, to that point, it doesn't hurt to change up your sanitizers, because essentially you're shocking the system, right? So if you're strictly using, for instance, like let's say Iostar, it wouldn't hurt for you to run a cycle of SaniClean, because you're essentially like making sure everything's microbial level, like is being kind of killed, you know? But as far as the aspects of it, both are low foaming, both are final rinse. You're just really looking at a difference in price and contact time. And like I said, with the iodine-based sanitizers, there's other issues that can come up with an iodine-based sanitizer. People just have moved away from iodine-based sanitizers within the industry, I'd say. Let's see. I think a couple came in.
I think Brandon Houston's question at 726 was the.
At 726, okay. Is there a big difference between Starzan versus SaniClean? Is that?
Yeah. I was just trying to figure it out. Is the only difference really the low foaming on the SaniClean, and then obviously the more longer contact time? Because I use SaniClean over the Starzan just because I have pumps and whatnot.
Yeah.
So exactly. I just wanted to make sure, was there a really big difference in the cleaning aspect or the sanitizing aspect between the two?
So I wouldn't run Starzan through a pump just because it's going to be like a foam party, you know?
Yeah.
So it's more intended for manually sanitizing. I think that you're doing the right thing, because especially for a CIP cycle, SaniClean is your best option, because it's low foaming and because the contact time is, I mean, you have to run it for a little bit longer. But you're just not going to want to use Starzan. It is a similar phosnitric blend. It's just the foaming aspect is the biggest difference.
Is there
in the application?
Is there a temperature range for SaniClean, or does it not matter?
So SaniClean works at a wide temperature range. So we say anywhere from 80 to 160. So okay. It does work at a wide temperature range. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And then for keg washers, does acid 3AB or 5 affect gaskets? It shouldn't, depending on, the quality of the gasket. Now, I would recommend for keg washers, I would recommend the acid 6. If you can find the acid 6, it's more designed to work in CO2 environments for keg washing. But you can get away with using an acid 5. Now the acid 3AB, I don't know if I would use that in a keg washer, just because, like I said, that's more intended for rust removal in stainless steel tanks. I don't know if I would run that through a keg washer, just because it's a little bit harsher of an acid. So your best bet, if you could get it, would be the acid 6, or run an acid cycle with the acid 5. Is there a minimum temperature Pbw should be rinsed off at? No, I would say use the hotter water. What tends to happen sometimes when you do use Pbw is it will leave a little bit of a white film on it. Now the hotter temperature of the water, what that essentially is that's a little bit of undissolved silicate. This happens to some people, and they kind of worry, what is that? It's not that it's not cleaning, but the hotter temperature of water that you can rinse off with, the better. And if you do see that come up on your stainless steel, just brush it off with some, a non-abrasive brush, and hot water. But no, there shouldn't be, there's not really a minimum temperature. I would just suggest hotter water.
Touching on the rinsing, I forgot to ask about the SaniClean. Do you recommend rinsing that after, or just leave it?
No, I would never rinse after a sanitizer. Don't rinse after the sanitizer, because essentially what you're doing when you rinse a sanitizer off, you're kind of starting over, So yeah, definitely clean and then sanitize, but then leave it. So especially with Starzan too, there is another myth going around that maybe, you should rinse afterwards. If you're using Starzan, leave it to air dry is what we recommend, because I mean, even when you're sanitizing, for instance, like let's say like bottles, right? The Starzan can actually act as a yeast nutrient. So you were fine with just letting it air dry, and it's really about the contact time when it comes to your sanitizers.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Starzan, I keep hearing don't fear the foam, as in fill vessel, even if foam is there, but the package clearly states to let air dry. Yep, I would let it air dry. We do say don't fear the foam, because like I was talking about, just gets into those cracks and crevices. But yes, you need a contact time once applied. Once Starzan's mixed into solution and you apply it, you need a contact time of about 2 to 5 minutes, and then let it air dry. What is super moss? That's a good question. So super moss is actually just Irish moss. What it essentially is, if people are familiar with the term Irish moss, is that it's a natural product that just helps remove certain things from a batch. So that's essentially Irish moss is what super moss is. So sorry, that was my dog. he's having a dream. Does anybody have? Did I get the everybody's question?
Yeah, that's all I see in the chat. But if more people have some on the top of your minds, please go for it.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Normally leave my Starzan like in a bucket, with the lid on it, and then say it's been 3 months and I dump it out. There's like almost like a creamy white residue on the bottom side of the bucket. Was that something eating bucket, or is that just like part of the Starzan that's, what is that?
So what can happen over time with Starzan, especially if you leave it for a long period of time, is it can kind of become hazy. And that's essentially like the acid separating from the water is what it is. It's not so much that it's eating away at the bucket, because are you using a dosing rate of like 1 ounce per 5 gallon?
Yeah.
So it's not at a high enough concentration to where that acid is going to be eating away at the plastic. So if you poured straight Starzan in there and then left it for a while, those acids will eat away at that plastic. But essentially what that is just the acid separating from the water.
Okay. And then I normally I'll ferment in keg, and then when it's done fermenting, I'll put Starzan in a keg and then transfer it out with CO2, so that way it's under pressure and clean up. But now we're saying we want it to dry out, so it'd actually be preferred to use Starzan, dump it, flip it upside down, let it dry out, and then seal it back up and blow it out with CO2. Is that the recommended way?
That's what I would recommend. Yes.
And then as far as bottling, you should not be dipping your bottle in a bucket with Starzan and then letting it sit for 10 minutes or 5 minutes, and then where there might be still liquid in there, or bubbles, you want to wait for it to dry out like hours.
I mean, I know that sounds like a lot, but then the other thing that you could do is, instead of dunking it into solution, you can also, once you mix it into solution, you could put it into spray bottles. and then you could apply it that way. But we do recommend that you let it air dry onto the bottles. So I
Okay.
know that's kind of a pain because that could take like a little while, but that is our recommended way of, you know, making sure that it's fully sanitized.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So sorry if I added more time to the routine.
Oh, it's good to know.
I get
mean,
it, man.
Because a lot of times I'll even have my bottling wand just sitting in the container of bucket, and I'll fill up a few bottles, and then I'll set it back in there, just so it's not touching any surfaces. But that would then lead to that being wet also when I'm bottling. So maybe that's why I'm doing so bad in these competitions.
That was a nice little segue.
I mean,
Jeremy, I'll tell you right now that I literally do all that. I leave my bottle caps in the solution. I do let my bottles dry out for maybe 15 or 20 minutes in Starzan, but I don't seem to be having problems.
well, you're Matt, so you know you have some magic.
But I just, you know, I've been told like, hey, you got to get the Starzan off of everything. And then I don't know if I completely agree, maybe for long-term aging, but I don't seem to be having problems with my process as far as that goes. Just gonna
Jeremy,
throw that.
just get a bottle tree.
Yeah, I know that's
It's the easiest way to do.
5-star should be selling their own bottle tree because that's, you know, recommended in a way.
I do.
You never know. We could have one coming out here pretty soon. You never know.
I mean, we
They
have
don't
had
dry very
men-
well inverted on a bottle tray, though. They
No.
drain, but they don't dry.
No.
Now we've had a few members say they've left Starzan in on accident, and then they end up having winning beers from that. So you never know. It might be the additional 0.25 gallons of Starzan left in the keg.
Well, it's not going to be harmful to the final product, though, too. You know, a lot of people worry about that, too. You know, I mean, accidents happen, and then it does get into like the final product, but it shouldn't be harmful. There was another question that came in. Is Pbw safe to use on a septic system? It is septic safe. It is. What I would do, though, prior to disposing of it is you can either let the solution sit or you could dilute it with water just to make sure you're neutralizing it before you put it into the septic system, but it is septic safe. Following on Jeremy, a common practice is to push a full keg of Sani through several kegs to both Sani and O2 removal. Is this viable, or should we switch to dry and CO2 flush, which leaves some CO2? That's a good question. I would switch to the dry and CO2 flush is what I would say. People might disagree with that, but that's what I would recommend. Does anybody else have any other questions?
I had one and I forgot it.
So
Is
I guess I'm a little confused why drying would be necessary if the pH is what sanitizes it.
because you want to make sure that you leave it. It's about like the contact time, and you want to make sure you leave it on it and don't rinse afterwards for your sanitizer, for all sanitizers. But is anybody interested also in the club in receiving acid 5 too? Because I could send you guys over some acid 5 as well. And then if anybody needs SaniClean, I could kind of include that in like the package that I'm going to send you guys with the tablets and then the liquid Pbw as well. So if anybody from the group is interested in getting some of that stuff, I can definitely send it out to you guys.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, that liquid PBW sounds really fun.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty excited about that. But like I said, we want to hear your feedback on it too, because I mean, the product's not even out on the market yet. But a lot of people are just excited about it because, you know, I mean, it works at a wider temperature range and it's a liquid as opposed to a powder. So, but yeah.
Awesome. Is that all for questions? Looks like it. All right, Ryan, thank you so much for your time. Like Starzan, or sorry, 5 Stars already donated so much to our club, so thanks for donating your time as well.
Of course, man.
It's great to meet you. Great to have
Yeah.
a connection with you because everybody uses your products. So
Thank you,
it's cool to
guys.
it's cool to get the insight, and I definitely learned stuff today.
And we really appreciate it too. And then if anybody else ever has any questions too, I mean, feel free to reach out. And then, like I said, I'm going to send you guys that stuff probably within the next week for the group, but don't hesitate to hit us up. If you guys are going to do another competition, we'd love to donate. And then, yeah, I could send you guys over too. Within the next month, I'd say we're going to have a complete version of our Master Brewers Guide. So our Master Brewers Guide is going to go through every operational aspect, how to clean, sanitize, passivate, everything in a brew house. So if you guys would find that information helpful, I'd be happy to send that over to you guys as well, because it's just a great reference guide to all of our stuff. And if anybody ever had any questions or was interested in starting their own operation, I think that this is a great guide to implement into anybody's SOPs. So
rock on. Well,
yeah.
Thank you again. We are going to resume with our normal club meeting. You're welcome to stick around if you feel like it. Wait, where are you at, by the way? What time zone is it?
So I'm in Denver. It's about 9 o'clock. So I'm gonna dip out, but I just want to say thank you guys. I appreciate you inviting me to this and thinking of 5 Star and using 5 Star stuff. So really appreciate it,
Thanks,
guys.
Ryan.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Have a good night.
You too.
Go
See ya.